I'm a man who believed that I died 20 years ago, and I live like a man who is dead already. I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Gary Webb. I am an investigative journalist, and in 1996 I wrote a series of stories entitled Dark Alliance, which was about CIA involvement in drug trafficking.
I knew a man who once said death smiles at us all. All a man can do is smile back.
We've both been skull and bone, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go
I'm
wild.
sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the rest.
Number 322.
I sad duty to report this afternoon that my friend and colleague, Tim Russert, collapsed and died early this afternoon.
I may die in this cell tonight or in the arena tomorrow. I am a slave. What possible difference can I make?
And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.
What the fuck is up? Welcome to another Already Dead, your favorite weekly live call-in, conspiracy, parapolitical, whatever you want to call it, variety show. I don't know how topical this week's going to be, because I don't know about you, but I guess for those who've been following along with my life, you know, whether you've been watching my morning streams, I've had a lot of shit going on, so I have not been paying attention to current events, but we have plenty of dives from the past to spurg into today. So whether if you guys can think of topical, stuff like that you want us to cover, but I don't recall anything too. But I haven't been paying attention, so I don't know. Maybe there's something out there. Yeah,
it's really just a lot of kind of the height of the election season, sort of the political paradigm, sort of in conflict. So it's more along the lines of, I would say, most of this week's news, I would say, well, one, we can't every single week focus on Israel. So that's something that I'm attempting to do.
They're still fucking around, guys.
They're still fucking around. Exactly, man. But
here's your update.
For sure.
By the way, Jose Galisan, we got Austin over here.
Yeah,
your dynamic duo. Sorry. Finish the intro. Go on.
Dude, no worries, buddy. But I do think it's kind of hilarious, though, that, you kind of are seeing this sort of just the natural kind of, I don't know, what would you call it? Just sort of the cannon fodder of the political ideologies, just kind of playing the game of the two-party illusion. And so once again, you see the narrative behind, let's say, Kamala, right, shouting down this Christian individual who I guess she was allegedly, according to certain articles, she was being heckled. I haven't watched the thing.
I don't even know.
But I guess I don't know.
Have you heard she's not black? Have I talked about this on the show yet? I must have mentioned it on here before.
Yeah. I think we discussed it.
Hey, she's still going. Candace is still going, and I've been popping in, and she's fucking. I'm not gonna lie, she's killing it.
Dude.
She's pretty much. She ain't. All right, someone said she's. All right, I want to be very clear. Candace is claiming Kamala's mom was an MK Ultra doc in her Kamala Ain't Black series. No, she's saying that she knows someone who's claiming that, and she's saying I don't know, we'll figure that out. It is. Dude's she's not black. She's just not at this point. She's dug into it deep enough. I can't really give you a good summary, but essentially, go check out Candace's shit if you're curious about it. But they were definitely fucking. Kamala was leaning into it hard, and a lot of people were just straight up saying it. She ain't black.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was hilarious. I had someone send me really legitimate listener that I enjoy having conversations with sent me basically that Candace Owens episode of her essentially kind of making that implication, right? So like to me, I like inevitably it's difficult for me to not witness sort of the patterns of the altars, right? Because she does tend to kind of shift in her right now. I understand that when you're a political chameleon, right? Like it's you basically you're kind of tailoring your right, like just the way you speak to the audience that you're attempting to reach.
You're a
So
created person. You're just trying to be whatever the
exactly,
person wants you to be. It's like
exactly.
in Marvel Comics, for example. This is a nerd
Hmm.
reference, but Galactus, the destroyer of worlds, the guy who comes and just like literally
Yeah,
his whole thing is he destroys planets. He eats planets. Whenever he shows up to whatever world he shows up to, he is in a form that they can understand. That
yeah,
he's not actually the
man,
Galactus that looks like a human. So that's what politicians are. They're like, I'm here to
right,
fucking destroy everything, but I'm gonna take a form that's comfortable for you.
exactly.
Yeah.
It
So
truly is like in essence, you know, it boils down to we need to be able to discern for ourselves between the true power brokers and their willing puppets, like I just tweeted, right? Because it truly is kind of like something I'm consistently just it's consistently being revealed to me. Every single thread that I pull on, I tug on, I jump down these rabbit holes, head first, and I inevitably, right, see this similar pattern. And so like when you have peak election season, right? But you also seem to witness like this sort of paradigm where you have like this kind of like intersection that I brought up with William a couple weeks ago, where you have this intersection of social engineering and culture creation, but also covert intelligence operations combined with like esoteric occult ideologies and these like they essentially become these covert systems of influence, right? And it's disturbing to realize that there could be this sort of clandestine attempt to subconsciously get us to almost embrace a sort of initiation, right, into these occult ideologies, and by using like these various methods of you know, let's say symbolism and occult iconography, which how many times can you point to that? Which, y- right, I had mentioned in the private chat a movie that I had just watched as well, but
real
also,
quick,
yeah,
someone mentioned I'm not familiar with this story. I don't know if you are. I guess
hmm
and it says on Piers Morgan. It says Daddy Falcor says, "You going to talk about the Israeli who admitted to taking out politicians on Piers Morgan?" That's news for
interesting.
me.
I had no idea.
By the way, a little of an update. I'm probably doing a morning stream tomorrow, so if
Nice.
someone can find any sort of good little links for that, especially short clips,
Mm.
send it my way, and that might get covered tomorrow because that sounds like the sort of thing that get covered. Although I'll be honest, I already have plenty of content to cover. I'm probably going to cover another. Yesterday, I did a morning stream, and I covered a thread. I ended up calling it in the episode "Programmed Chicken Hawk" because
I
that's
saw
kind of
that.
what it is. It literally is like a mixture of "Program to Kill" and like "I the Chicken Hawk." And
Hmm.
so like I thought that was a clever name, but yeah, that was a thread from a
Dude, I almost forgot about that thread.
yeah, it was a
I'm
thread
glad you
from. Oh,
immediately
we'll
brought it
come
up.
back to it. I just was I don't remember why
No,
it
I
came
think it's
up now.
important as hell to bring that up, honestly,
Yeah.
and
No,
and I
we'll come
do
back
agree.
to it, but I'm only mentioning it just in passing in the
Hmm.
sense that, we're, hey, send me this shit because I'll probably cover this tomorrow.
Yeah,
It's
no
almost just a
doubt.
plug to, pop in tomorrow. That'll probably get covered if I can find it. But yeah, I do have another master thread from that same user that I'm probably going to go through tomorrow. And this one's going to be about the Long Island serial killer, one of the chicks who got taken
Interesting.
out from it, and kind of weird connections with her. So, yeah, so
Interesting.
yeah, I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. But I also have a fucking what's his name? I almost said JD Cashless, but it's not JD Cashless. Ken Silva. I have Ken Silva
Yeah.
article to read tomorrow, and then probably some other
Are you
shit.
gonna
But
read
that
that?
might make it. Yeah. Huh?
Are you gonna read that election day terrorism article? Because that was insane about
is it the dude that they've been fucking working for 5 years?
No, I saw that
that's the
today.
one I'm
Yeah.
doing.
Oh my
Yeah.
god, dude. Yeah, that was crazy too. That schizo kid that they've been in
Yeah.
contact with for over 5 years, essentially grooming him, which my god.
Oh
Yeah.
shit! Former CEO of Abercrombie got
Oh yeah.
arrested for trafficking. Lex Wexner
I
Part 2.
saw Whitney Webb
Jesus
posted
Christ!
about that. Mm-hmm.
All right, well there you go. See, this is why I got you guys. So you guys need it. What you need to do is tag us and let us know when you see shit like this. So we're like, oh fuck, because I'm not always tapped into the current thing. Just because I have shit going on sometimes. This week was a rough week for me, but also I'm usually deep diving in some other past rabbit hole. But shit like this, yeah, I'm interested in. And honestly, this type of stuff usually doesn't get mentioned. So, so you need people like you looking out for us and letting us know. But sorry, go on. You want to tell us about your Roman Polanski movie you watched this weekend, which I knew we were going to talk about. First off, I want to know, Roman Polanski, has he actually done anything? I don't think I've ever watched a Roman Polanski movie. Does he have any movies that are like kind of
Rosemary's Baby?
I haven't watched that. Yeah, I haven't watched that.
No, I mean he has many different. Honestly, like he's an amazing director as much as he's sort of, just entirely evil, right? Like because it does seem to be the case, especially in context with, if you read about what the LAPD, certain individuals who were first responders at the investigation scene and the crime scene, and they essentially said they witnessed the tape where she was being gang raped and was not enjoying any of that, right? And so I do believe that he's somehow initiated into these satanic ideologies, whether it's the esoteric occult version of the process, or brother, that's what I'm about to
did.
Exactly. Namrock said, "Did you watch The Ninth Gate?" And that is exactly what I did, because I've known about it for quite a while, but I haven't watched it for that exact reason.
What'd you watch it on?
Amazon Prime is on, actually.
Okay. All right, you didn't have to pay for it?
No, I didn't have to pay for it.
Okay, well maybe I might have to check it out.
You should check it out. Yeah.
Because
it is, again, it dropped and was published in 1999, which is interesting because it's the turn of the century, and I think it's kind of like this what people need to understand is like there's sort of like this ancient pagan esoteric satanic like belief that it's very strange, because they sort of like they believe in this sort of rebirth, right? This process of rebirth, and it's disturbing as hell. And when I was watching the movie alone, I was just like almost taken aback, as if my participation as an audience member was subconsciously affiliating me with their ideology. It's like that's legitimately, after going through the Ultimate Evil, I almost feel as if there's some sort of energy that they're attempting to harness for some particular reason. Whether this is entirely speculation. I'm just saying that it consistently happens, and so I'm very much under the impression that you don't have to be consciously aware of what you're participating in to inevitably sort of facilitate that not just the ideology itself, but the thinking patterns behind it, which I think is more important, especially when you're dealing with culture creation and social engineering at such sophisticated levels. Yeah. And I think that's why Hollywood itself, I always go back to the Laurel Canyon book, because just Hollywood itself, right? The name itself, the ancient druid composition for the wand, and there's no coincidence there. It's not a mistake. I mean, it has to be a spell that they're attempting to cast over all of society, whether we're aware of it or not. I don't think, essentially, that doesn't even matter, and it's kind of, that alone is disturbing. But when you watch this movie, yes, you feel, and
there's a reason for that.
I believe you, brother. But I know that the night, like I said, Ninth Gate, released in 99. wasn't a huge success at the time, but because like a lot of people had an issue with the ending itself. It's kind of strange, but for me, it was perfectly fitting. It made all the sense in the world. And that was upon my first viewing. So I could see, if you have no prior context, where you might fall into that fall under that impression, I guess, but yeah. So it's ridiculous because, of course, 1968, Roman Polanski released Rosemary's Baby, and this is a psychological horror film about a newlywed woman who is groomed by a satanic cult to give birth to the Antichrist. All right, and in a way, this
sounds like multiple cults we've talked about.
brother.
Yeah.
And also
think how many of them have a star child or whatever the fuck of some sort involved, like some sort of kid of some sort. Yeah. Sorry, go on.
Absolutely, man. No, and it honestly, it dovetails in with it ties in perfectly with the Fort Bragg murders as well, which hopefully we can talk about at some point, because that involves satanic ritual abuse and also kind of this false narrative implicating like the Manson family, because it was a recent crime that had occurred, and the cult members themselves, who were essentially, the architects of this crime at Fort Bragg and the Dr. McDonald murders, which Dr. McDonald himself was inevitably sort of, hung out to dry and falsely imprisoned for years and years to this very day. But before I get off before I get into that, honestly, we should finish just really kind of dissecting the symbolism and the occult iconography in that film, because it honestly was just something that I felt. I'm sure Roman Polanski thought it was his magnum opus to a certain extent. It was sick. It was something that it seemed like some sort of pagan rite that he was fulfilling. It was strange, but
to be fair, I brought up for the listeners later. I brought up how convenient Roman wasn't home when the Manson family came to visit. I believe he was somewhere out of the country, but like, point being is, obviously we're being a little silly here, but like, let's be real. I mean, I guess it's not unrealistic for someone of his job that he would be jet setting all over the place. It's not that crazy, but still.
And people need to realize that within these ideologies, there's almost like this hierarchy of occult power that you can wield through these rituals. And the targets of the rituals matter. They give you more of this power. And that is at least the belief system. And so at the top of the list, and I have individuals on the record, right, who can actually make these claims. And it's honestly one of the most disturbing things that you can ever read is Helena Stokely's statement to Ted Gunderson. And I read through the whole thing. Oh my God, man. Like it really made me think that how many of these people, like, let's say Ted Gunderson and Bill Cooper, who are, kind of
suspect.
Yeah. But many people have sort of, I don't know. It's very difficult because it seems to me like, it's very hard to read. But it's like,
Tanya swears by Gunderson, and I don't know. I mean, I've never. There's a lot of things he talked about that later he was dead on. That sounded like a kook at the time. So, but I don't know. People are so quick to say, "Oh, this person's a Fed or whatever." But I don't know. It is kind of hard when the dude was literally a Fed. So like, I don't know. I get where people think he's one way or the other, but it's also like, I don't fucking know. He could have been completely legit, or it could have been some combination thereof. I don't know. So, yeah.
And I mean, briefly to that point, I will say that I go back and I listen to, because Charlie Robinson just had an episode with Chris Graves on Columbine, and I listened to it, and he mentioned Bill Cooper, and he mentioned his natural reaction in the moment to Columbine.
Yeah.
And I went back and I listened to it, right?
You've heard Bill Cooper had some crazy claim about McVeigh, right?
Yeah. I heard that.
Oh,
Yeah.
he just claimed that I think he came to visit him, and he just happened to be like, "Oh, I have a microchip in my butt" or something like that.
Oh my god.
Yeah, no, seriously, it was very bizarre, and it's just kind of like
Damn it.
It's like source,
Yeah.
trust me, bro.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm honestly
Just hung out with McVeigh.
that's crazy.
Okay, dude.
I know, right? I would really love to know, like, have the context for that specifically, because that's I think what's missing a lot of the time in regard to like trying to decide for ourselves whether any of these people are credible.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like it's lost in translation. And if we don't have the context for it in the moment, maybe he was just speculating purely and just like said some shit. But if he really did say he was, somebody came to, to McVeigh came to see him, that's insane.
I don't remember the specifics. I've looked into it in the past. It seemed it's one of those things that it's annoying that people will randomly be like, oh yeah, Bill Cooper, they may not even reference Bill Cooper, but they will just state as fact that happened, or that he had a microchip in his butt or whatever it was. I think, but it's like, and don't get me wrong, there is actually credence to the idea that he did have like shit implanted in him, and Wendy Painting's book goes really into that, and like he did make these claims to people. I think it was typically like the claim was usually like it was in it like a dental implant or something like that, which that's a little bit more like, I mean, I'm wrong. I guess I could do it in the butt too, but I mean, especially if you know the story behind all the dental visits he had, it's like, okay, well that might have something to do with it. But point being is, it's just like people unquestioningly just say it, and it's just because Bill Cooper literally just
it's frustrating.
Like there's no source, like.
Especially since he's admitted as much that he at the very least he admitted that basically he was fed disinformation and he was duped in a few different ways as far as like certain claims that he has made. And so if you're willing to admit you're wrong, right? Like I need to know the context of the claims that are the most extraordinary. That way I can kind of discern for myself and engage the credibility, because I think it's very frustrating and many different
Here we
times.
go. Dirt McGirt, they stopped by the Army surplus store that Cooper was running his radio show. I will say the Army surplus store, that does make it a little bit believable in the sense that it's like, because that would be somewhere he would frequent. But I don't know. It just sounds like a made-up story, to be honest. Like, I don't know. Like, oh, I just happened to be McVeigh, and he said something about a microchip in his butt. Like, okay, Bill Cooper. Like, what the fuck? Yeah, you just got that inside scoop, just all fucking serendipitously like that. Like, what the fuck? I mean, sure, maybe it happened. I don't know. I mean, I'm not even saying he doesn't have a fucking microchip in his butt. But, like, it's just, there's not really anything to back it up other than, trust me, bro, from Bill Cooper.
I'm with you.
Which, I mean, I get a lot of people like Bill Cooper, but he's made a lot of claims with no source. So, and the people just unquestionably go, well, Bill Cooper said it. And you're like, I don't know why that's enough for you. But whatever.
I know. I think often he would go into sort of like this rambling speculation and be much more emotional in his presentation. That happened very often. Anytime that I've heard him speak. Which he doesn't sound like someone that, I don't know, anytime I've ever listened to anything he's ever done, like, I don't come away thinking that he's really trying to deceive me. It kind of, I've kind of believed that he believes what he's saying, whether it's, extraordinary or not, and whether it's credible or not, that's a different thing that you have to grapple with. But what's that?
Oh, sorry. I was about to butt in, but I guess I forgot you're getting to a point. I saw Jules in the chat brought up Rothschild connection, so I didn't know if you want to get into that. But I guess you can finish your point, and then I do want to hear what his connection is.
No, yeah. Basically, I just think that the Roman Polanski movie, though, itself, like, my only point on Bill Cooper was that when I listened to his reaction on Columbine, he could have been a disinformation operative, but
so this is Bill Cooper's commentary on Columbine as well.
But his emotional reaction alone, maybe I'm just vulnerable, but I really feel like I can assess pretty well whether someone is, emotionally deceptive, or whether it seems like it's coming from a genuine place. right? It's like it was very difficult. But when I listened to him, he almost made me cry, man. I mean, it's maybe he is just a very convincing, right? But yeah, it was strange. I'm always attempting to just find out for myself whether the individual believes the narrative that they are putting forward. And that alone matters to me because it's like if you're attempting to deceive me, never again will I trust you in any way, right?
Yeah.
At any level. And so I will remain skeptical, like I always have on both Ted Gunderson and Bill Cooper. But I will say that the level of research that Ted Gunderson specifically I can point to, that he's provided me with legitimate threads of information that I've gone down these rabbit holes and found to be credible myself on my own, researching standards. So yeah, Ted Gunderson, I'm much more willing to deem as a little bit of a credible source. But anyway, the point being that this film itself is really kind of in the vein of what became the birth of a new era, considering when it's being uh like this film is being produced in 1999, like I said. And so the prophecy of Rosemary's Baby, of course, in 1968, when that dropped, uh, it came true in less than a year after the release, right? Where Roman Polanski's pregnant wife, Sharon Tate, was brutally murdered by the Manson family. And so it's especially when you know the MK Ultra connections there and the Process Church ideological connections to Manson himself, and then also the Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate connection to the Rome chapter of the Process. It starts to dovetail perfectly again. And so the end of the hippie movement, right? The summer of love, right? The final death nail was plunged into the summer of love when Sharon Tate was brutally murdered. And so 30 years later, at the dawn of 1999, right? The dawn of the new millennium, Polanski releases this film called The Ninth Gate. And so very much in the same vein as Rosemary's Baby, right? Like you have to kind of grapple with the reality of the role that Satan plays in the film itself, because not at all is Satan is basically heralded as this powerful entity that is meant to be used as a tool, and it's not really put into the context of, something to overwhelmingly fear. You know what I mean? It's almost like something that you can utilize and leverage for your own benefit. And it begins to kind of form into this exactly. But
Justin Valentine says in Rosemary's Baby, the father was in the cult. Real quick, we'll get back. J Pro Plumbing said I ordered the Aberration book after yesterday's stream. It shows up tomorrow. I'm super stoked. Hell yeah, dude! I spent a good, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10 minutes yesterday on the stream, kind of breaking down reasons why. I kind of just skimmed through the table of contents and kind of to jog my memory and all the little rabbit holes that go in there, because people think if it's just an OKC book, and you're like, yeah, sort of, but it's like, to break down OKC, you need to understand MK Ultra, you need to understand different implants CIAs have been looking into, frequency waves, all the history of lone wolves, all the different types of narratives, and then in the subsets of like how to understand that, like you can't. And this is a respectable book. Like this is something you could give to somebody and they read through it and like they come through and now they have a pretty damn good understanding of all these things. And it could be like a normie at the beginning. So it's a very useful book. Sorry, but go on.
Mm-hmm. No, you're good. And you're absolutely right about Aberration, though, because, gosh, man, not only does mind control come up with McVeigh, but I mean, the fact that, again, I brought up Columbine, I jumped down that rabbit hole and instantly realized, oh my God, it happened on the 20th of April, but it was supposed to happen on the 19th. And specifically because it was the anniversary of the Waco siege and the Oklahoma City bombing. And also that Eric Harris who's allegedly one of the two shooters, right?
I mean, I had Jolly, I had old Jolly on Klebold Tim Tuttle on the show.
Yeah.
And he, I forget how the connection is made, but essentially there's a PatCon connection.
Oh yeah.
There. Or wait, never mind. I'm retarded. I'm mixing it up with Sandy Hook. They all blur together.
Oh yeah,
that's
well,
Sandy.
dude, not at all.
Although
surprised.
maybe there was one in Columbine. I forget. I don't know. Whatever. Maybe actually, I think there kind of was the Columbine as well. There was definitely. I don't know. Whatever. Go check out that series. I did a little series I think on Columbine with him, or at least an episode.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's worth checking out for sure because they all seem to strangely resemble each other and a very similar signature at the very least, right? So it's just something that is worth looking into. But I'll get back to what I was saying. But to finish that thought though, I thought it was hilarious that it was even stated that Eric Harris hoped to beat Timothy McVeigh's body count in Oklahoma. And I mean, it's not hilarious. It's terrible. But I'm just saying that it's like the pattern recognition itself is just, how can you not just, walk away with your mind entirely blown, but still just kind of confirming your own bias of something that we already suspected. But and in his own journal, he fantasized about planting bombs around Littleton and Denver. And in one journal entry, he wrote about the Judgment Day, right? Mm-hmm. And he says that if he and Dylan Klebold survived the event, Judgment Day, that they should hijack a civilian airliner and crash it into New York City. This was in 1999. I mean, that itself is fucking insane. Like, how could you even, consider that to be reality? I don't know. It's a struggle for me, and I forgot all of these details until I just went back down that rabbit hole. Oh my God, it'll be for sure. It's in the pipeline for an upcoming solo project. But to finish just this a few more notes on this Roman Polanski film called The Ninth Gate. Mm-hmm. I think that, of course, when this movie's released, he's a fugitive. Not allowed in the United States because he allegedly drugged and raped an underage girl, and who I thought was even potentially somehow affiliated with his own family, which is amazing. It's just insanity.
And it was in Jack Nicholson's house.
I remember that now.
Yeah.
My God,
Jack
I forgot
Nicholson
about that.
is a weird motherfucker.
Jack Nicholson, him, Dennis Hopper, and a few others all have tunnels that would run to the Playboy Mansion underground. Now think about Now think about with the little girl. How often did that happen, right?
That's insane, brother.
Just the one time, guys. Just the one time.
Just as
it was a classic mix-up.
Right.
Yeah. No, there were tunnels when in the Laurel Canyon episode I did. There were tunnels all over those estates, and they connected to Lookout Mountain Laboratory as well. And so it seemed to have been an intelligence operation. And in many ways, it resembled Diddy's Grotto and his he's
got like a weird little underground thingy that goes to like a.
Whoa. Yeah. What do you know? Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like Epstein himself. One of his victims, who was trafficked and spent time at the Zorro Ranch property. She woke up one night paralyzed and naked on an operating table while at Zorro Ranch. And this was in the middle of the night. All of them seemed to have, I guess, apparently all of these female victims who allegedly went through this similar circumstance and abuse.
Whoa, sorry. I don't mean to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
But I never put this together.
Stop it.
Jack, think about it. Who has played the Joker? I mean, I'm assuming the first. Watch. There's probably. I bet you someone would probably do a deep dive on the fucking dude from the old school one. I forget his name. He had some sort of Hispanic last name. I think he actually was an Hispanic actor of some sort. The first Joker, Caesar.
Yeah,
I don't remember some sort of Hispanic sounding name. Then you have Jack Nicholson, Heath Ledger, and Jared Leto. So
and Joaquin Phoenix.
Hey, you know what else I heard?
Joaquin Phoenix.
I heard Alex Jones was. Now I did a deep dive recently on
Sorry. Even Joaquin Phoenix.
Go ahead, bro.
Joaquin Phoenix, because all right, think about it. I mean, I don't know if maybe it makes me really think like maybe there's something more to the Joker.
His little brother, River Phoenix, died at Johnny Depp's club.
Yeah,
right.
I know. Yeah.
Well, I was also thinking there's some dynamic too, and like if we maybe knew what, I just feel like maybe the Joker could be some sort of ritual or something. Because it's like it is if you've read comics, it's very much an archetypical thing.
Maybe they take on this entity during this role.
Well, not even that. I'm just thinking like it may mean something to them, like whether or not that actually is taken on an entity or something. Because I mean, you think about the characters Jack Nicholson, who somebody died in the wool of that stuff. Then you had Heath Ledger who dies. Then you have Jared Leto, another person died in the wool. Then you have Joaquin Phoenix, which I don't know to what extent he is or not. I feel like I've always felt like, I mean, I don't fucking know that maybe he's one of the good ones, or maybe to some degree mixed up. But even then, he had the first Joker, and then I don't know if you've been paying attention. The next Joker recently came out. That first Joker, like, while I do think overall it's not the greatest message, but in a certain sense, it became an elites versus the downtrodden message in that first one, and it was very well received for that message. And then the second one came through. Which I was doing me wrong. To some extent, he's a loser. It's killing people, so it's like it's not good.
Yeah.
But I get where people get this idea of like, oh, the people have been downtrodden. This is what's been produced from this, and this is their revenge. Whether regardless of how you feel about it, and how that can have a certain feeling to someone, and how the elites may not like that message. And then the second one comes along, and they didn't kill him, but they almost like killed the Joker in a sense because. I think, spoiler alert for those who actually care, supposedly, I guess the end of that movie is literally him getting fucking gang raped. It might even be like murdered. So it's like literally like
humiliation ritual.
Yes, it feels like they almost were like trying to snub the legacy of whatever that created. Yeah. So it's like anytime people think of it, because if they had just stopped the first one, it would have kept that message intact. Yeah. Whereas now people think of Joker and they think of Boom Boom and they think of the second one that fucked it up. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm just saying. I mean, obviously, there's some parallels here and some not, but it just feels like maybe we're missing some key of what the fuck the Joker is. The role is.
He's a pop culture icon now. Yeah. After Heath Ledger was essentially,
Jack Nicholson, was he one of the motherfuckers? He wasn't living up on Lookout Point or wherever the fuck where all those people were at? Was he? He was one of them, right? He's in the where Jared Leto's living now?
Oh, dude.
He didn't also became the Joker?
He didn't live there, but he was in the Laurel Canyon scene.
Yeah, okay, so he was in the Laurel Canyon scene. Mm-hmm. I know Jared Leto, I forget, his house was like the house. I forget. It's like where all the people were at.
His house was Lookout Mountain Laboratory.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. That's Leto's house. And exactly. Nicholson was also mixed up in that same exact fucking Laurel Canyon crowd.
He was with Dennis Hopper, all those same... I talked about him specifically because he was he's a real degenerate pervert, man. Like he swam in the same circles as that crew in the Laurel Canyon book that Dave McGowan
Cesar
wrote.
Romero. That's what I wanted to say, but sorry, go on. That was the first Joker. Good. And I don't know if there's anything with him. Maybe there's some spookiness, but I know that was like fuckload of decades earlier, so I don't know. Right. I don't feel like it matters, but who knows?
I don't know, because I feel like in its infancy, it was always intended to perform this sort of spell over the minds of the population, a social engineering, intention behind it all. And that's why I think Hollywood is built on MK Ultra in a way. But what you can point to in the film, right, is all of these different references to Dante's Inferno, the 9 circles of hell. They play out in the movie itself. And so you witness the first circle being limbo, the second circle being lust, the third circle is gluttony, greed, anger, heresy, violence, fraud, treachery is the 9th circle. And they all play out in the course of the film. And so you see Johnny Depp essentially experience all of these different stages of Dante's Inferno. And he's also all the while sort of being like directed by, almost guided by the whore of Babylon. And you're wondering what this entity is throughout the film. You can clearly tell it's a demon, but you can't quite conclude what exactly the representation is. The Ninth Gate is the movie. But yeah, so once you start to kind of, interpret the significance with all of these different symbolic gestures that are occurring throughout the film, because it's not necessarily being spoken. It's clearly just like things like, for example, this wealthy individual named Boris Balkan in the film. He hires him. He's like to track down these other copies of this satanic book, and basically you as soon as you are allowed entry, or Johnny Depp's character is allowed entry into this area where all this insanely high profile art is, and then also you have these ridiculously priced books, right? That are just extraordinarily valuable, and all of them are directly associated with some ancient pagan version of Satan himself, some sort of Luciferian, that's basically every single work within this library, right, is dedicated to Satan himself. And so there's like these ancient castles in France on the wall, and this comes back up later, and it all seems to resemble like this kind of Knights of Malta, Knights Templar Renaissance, like everything that I've covered within the OTS, within, right, just the Belgian Gladio itself, all the old Rosicrucian orders, and these are all within the same vein, offshoots, overlapping networks, almost indistinguishable at this point, right? Because it really just amounts to certain details within the ideology itself that is the only differentiating factors, right? And so it's like I'm obsessed with this at this point, brother. Like I witnessed like
I think I'm gonna have to watch this movie, and then maybe we talk about it again next week.
No, I think it would
so
be
maybe
great.
we should leave a little on the table.
Let's save the Rothschild connection.
I had no idea. We're 41 minutes in.
No, you're good. Actually, let's take a minute and we'll swap over to the call-in portion. We'll take a minute and thank our sponsors. We have Nadeau Shave Co. That shit, guys. You need to get on it. If you're tired of that razor burn irritation, those ingrown hairs that come from those like stuff like fusion blades, those multi-blade nonsense, then this is the way to go. This Big Shave's been psyoping you to think you need that nonsense. You don't. Go back to traditional shave. You just need one little razor. That's all you really need. You don't need expensive nonsense. You can shave just like your grandpa used to. Whether you're doing your whole face or edging up the beard, the single blades give you a barber grade shave for a fraction of the price. You should upgrade your system. The standard issue includes one traditional safety razor and a box of 100 stainless steel razor blades. $75 for the entire year. Now think of that through for a second. $75 for a whole year. That's 100 blades. Let's be real. Those blades give you probably, 1 to 3-ish shaves out of them. So that's about 300 days of shaving. So you could shave every single day for 300 days roughly. And you'd be good. And who shaves that much? So let's be real. If you do shave that much, though, you might want to consider the Quarter Shave Club. You can do 25 cents per replacement blade. But yeah, do that math. Think about how many those multi-blade cartridge things you get every time. Those cost probably at least $30 these days for a few. And so you're gonna do that a few times a year. You're spending less for this. You're also not fucking up your face. Those multi-blade nonsense, that does fuck your face up. It just does. That's fucking 3 blades. That's 3 times the fucking your face up. Let's be real. You need the one shave, one blade's all you need. It's a COVID mandate refusing company. I like to bring that up all the time. This dude, Nadeau, he literally got booted out of the military for sticking up for what he believed in, and he took up entrepreneurialism to help support himself, and that's where we're at these days. So use code Jose for 10% off your entire order. I do appreciate this product. I appreciate this company for all they do and for supporting us. So if you want us to support us in a roundabout way, and get something out of it, this is your way to do it. Nadeau Shave Co. Use Jose at checkout for 10% off. All right, guys. I'm about to bring up... All right, the lines are about to be open. 941-281-5857. You can give us a call, and we will talk to you. Or at least I will, because I still haven't figured out the technology to make it so you guys can talk to Austin. But Austin can hear you. So if you have a question, call in. Or if you're a patron... of me or Austin, we give you a StreamYard link, and you can join in as kind of just like this. Oh, never mind, I fucked up. Just like this. You could join in just like that. There you go. I meant to do that the first time around. So you can join in as another little face alongside us and talk to us and hang out. Or you can call in. Or give us suggestions in the chat. But here we are. I did want to talk about that thread that I talked about on my morning stream yesterday. This is I'll bring it up real quick. Let me see. Share screen. Share screen. Share. Right. See that? You see that, Jules? A bit of dick. See, I didn't bring up our chat.
I did it though.
Oh, you did what? You brought this up?
No, I'm saying I switched to the custom layout like you told me to.
Nice. I see what you're saying. Oh no, well, you fucked up because now people can't see it. We got to go back to the other layout. I don't know. Oh, damn it! What'd you do? Oh, there we go. Oh, fuck, dude. There we go. All right. Sorry. We're all kind of technically retarded. Whatever. You can hang out, or you can boot yourself out. It's whatever.
I'll shut up and y'all talk.
Yeah, you can hang out. All right. Boom. All right. So this is I covered this yesterday. So this is basically about the West Point Child Development Center scandal. That I believe that might have been the one Aquino was associated with. I think.
Well, it seemed like it was directly connected anyway, but that was the implication in the first place because Presidio was happening at the exact same time that the West Point scandal happened.
But we're not going to cover all of this in this because I do want to respect you guys' time. I also covered it. I read the entire thing.
Though. Did you read the whole thing?
I read the whole thing on my stream. So that's kind of like what these. For those who aren't aware, I've been doing morning streams occasionally, and that's just kind of me doing a solo thing. I kind of read through articles, and this is likely shit I haven't even read. It's not really like a perfect presentation. This is literally me going through stuff I intended to read anyways, like whether it be articles or even just clips or whatever, or just ranting. And this is the one I went through. So I read this in the fucking stream. I read it, so it's not like it's anything original of mine. I took it from Lena Ajit. So I highly recommend following it. This person doesn't even have a lot of followers yet, but they're putting out really good content. So haven't been on very long. So yeah, you might want to hop on that one. Covers a lot of stuff like this, but essentially I believe this is a she with a name like Lena. She kind of dug into this story that was covered in Programmed to Kill about the West Point ritual abuse scandal. And then it kind of goes in this dovetails in this guy, Mark Raymond. You can see the picture there. And then then all his connections, you come to find out his brother was like basically the dude who ran NAMBLA, North American Man Boy Loving Association.
Nazi, remember when that came up? I mentioned just briefly to add to your point, what you're mentioning there is the fact that organization alone was within its foundation itself. It was inherently created by pedophiles for propping up and facilitating networks such as this. And I believe that because Paul Bonacci himself, who was a victim abused by the Franklin Network, also inevitably became, a procurer of young boys for the network itself, as they typically do, until they're left out and hung out to dry, or systematically destroyed half of the time, which is, incredible and very devastatingly sad and tragic. When you witness that occur. But anyway, go ahead and continue.
Yeah. But anyways, this dude, this is Mark Raymond, was the guy who was associated with the thing. And then his brother is a NAMBLA guy. It kind of goes off on a little bit of a tangent on his brother and stuff, which makes sense. The most notable thing that the main guy, Mark Raymond, the main guy that got busted, I believe what they got him for was CP. Everyone knows who that is. I'm not saying it because we're on YouTube. The old child stuff. And also he was sending like NAMBLA stuff or some shit, and his like reasoning was like, oh, I was sending it to my brother to be like, hey, look how bad this is, or look what they're doing, which, like, I don't know, kind of retarded. I don't know what more there is to it, but it does, obviously, then once you see who his brother is, you're like, yo, what the fuck is going on here? Then also they created, like, there was their father Fern Raymond, that was the pastor of a Methodist church. He was involved in Boy Scouts, camps, orphanages, Big Brothers. You know, so like, I mean, don't be wrong. Maybe his dad did nothing. I don't fucking know. But it's like these are all the trademark little dots you always see in similar these type of stories. Exactly. Yeah, Steve Raymond, which I forget which one that was. I think that's a brother. The Project Orphan. He had Project Orphan. Then later, you know, the orphanage. Yeah, and then there's also this weird advertisement at one point where it's weird. It's like literally talking about how cool this kid is. And
it looks it looks like Farmer L and Pizzagate, brother. It looks like they're selling children, man. That's what it looks like.
And then Mexican orphanages, and then it's terrible. You know, it gets weird. But there was some. Now this is what I was trying to get to. Now there was I believe there's another connection that I knew would get you going. Bizarrely, Mark Raymond was one of the first. Which Mark Raymond is the guy. He was also like a reporter, I believe, of some sort of journalist. So he did. But the people he interviewed, and like it is just kind of like, and the way he interviewed him makes you wonder, especially in retrospect, you're like, whoa, what the fuck? He was one of the first to interview Jim Jones. While the People's Cult incubated in Ukiah, wherever Ukiah is.
Ukiah. Yeah. Dude, you know where that is? It's in fucking Northern California by San Francisco, by the Presidio.
There you go.
I'm freaking out, man.
Yeah.
Where the People's Temple was located. You know?
So what's going on? I don't know. Brother. He described Jones as a well-educated and a devout Christian. But yeah, he did that. He pulled the whole Harvey Milk essentially and fucking essentially sucked him off, in metaphorically. Which that's funny if you know who Harvey Milk is. After the so he waxed. He basically like kind of fluffed up them. Accepting donations from the People's Temple for the Big Brothers chapter he started. There you go. What's going on in this Big Brothers chapter that Mark Raymond, the dude who got busted, twice in some some sort of daycare type thing, and then also I forget what it was.
My God! According to his obituary, he was also luckily granted an early interview with Apple of the Heaven's Gate cult.
Yep, that's another one. I was like, dude, you're gonna.
That one's been on the short list, so I will definitely have to.
And he was the executive for Jones Associate Harvey Milk Lesbian and Gay Democratic Club. So he was literally helping out Harvey Milk
up, Jose. Yep. Like this is the craziest fucking thing. When I read through this, it was exactly just talk about crossing all of the different recognizable patterns off to the list, right? You know what I mean? And it's exceptional as far as how it achieved that. But go ahead, finish this because
I'm just going through. Yeah, he. I mean, it is interesting to note he was honorably discharged from the military, after doing stuff to two of his colleagues' kids at West Point. That was the child care thing. Receiving CP to his residence and having participated in the 1984 in the West Point thing, or the Child Development Center scandal and the West Point thing are separate things, but they both happened on military bases, if I recall correctly. That's why I keep conflating them in my head. Yeah, he was like a PR guy or of some sort, like I believe is what he did. He worked as a bookkeeper for Parents United. So he's in all these little groups.
They always are.
Yeah. So this one is bizarre. I don't know if you've gone down the Parents United one. I'm astounded this thing exists.
I bookmarked it immediately.
Yes. You hadn't looked into it, heard about this yet?
No, I haven't looked into it yet.
Yes,
no.
This is what this Raymond guy was involved in. This Parents United entity, which encourages child abuse victims to make amends and seek therapy with their abusers in order to preserve the family unit. Which I don't know what that's supposed to mean. I mean, it does kind of give me the vibe of the old school, It's kind of the idea of especially it's. I feel like it's become less and less in fashion. I mean, that's probably the wrong word, but especially if you talk to older relatives, a lot of them will talk about how oh, there was, somebody in the family that like some older relative that people knew this. And like, it's a tale as old as time. I think it's not as common now where some family member was doing some shit and the rest of the family would be like, well, I don't know, maybe not. And like,
dude, I've heard it
trying
be
to keep the family
excused
together
by someone going to church and being saved and still being around like that child
and I bet
as
you
they
in
got
the
older.
reasoning, yep.
And I think it probably happened again. It was just like, what the fuck,
Yep.
Yeah. Unforgivable.
Yeah, and then so the idea here is like to seek therapy with their abusers to kind of, I don't know, get past old wounds, I guess. I don't know, which seems bizarre.
Reminds me of the false memory syndrome.
And then pedophiles are promoted to leadership positions within parents. I wasn't supposed to say that word, but whatever. Yep.
It's exactly what they do. I mean, it follows the playbook to a T. Yep. Right. So,
and then an orphanage in Bangkok, Thailand, which Raymond operated as well.
Yeah. My God.
So, which, I mentioned in the show, Gary Glitter, that's where he got busted for doing incredibly obscene things, was in Thailand.
Savile, which links back to the process. And
yeah. Which, I mean, obviously, I'm not saying that's connected because it happened in Thailand. I'm just saying this is like an orphanage in Thailand. Are you fucking kidding me? That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
Like, who the fuck are you fooling? Like, yeah.
Notorious pedophiles with pictures of children on their laps at these orphanages. And, it's like they're wanted for pedophilic crimes, right? And internationally. And it's just like no authorities are truly seeking any justice whatsoever. And whether it falls outside of their jurisdiction or whatever the excuse becomes, the authorities responsible, they see no reason, to follow through for what becomes to me essentially, an attempted cover up. I mean, that's the only thing that I can see is that why else do we consistently witness, right, the authorities only inserting themselves to cover up the network of abuse, right? Because it's always it always has to boil down to the public will accept this and no longer ask questions. So therefore, it was this solo lone gunman or a lone individual perpetrating the crimes, right? And the public just consistently, right, embraces this false narrative. And they don't want to ask any further questions because it's too disturbing to them. Their delicate sensibility, it's disrupted. And therefore, they would prefer to just have some sort of, God complex that they consistently attempt to, fulfill, whether it's subconscious or not. That's why you consistently see people just, right, engaging within the two-party illusion and actually believing the words of politicians. It's like, how can you not realize, the difference between the true power brokers and the willing puppets, right? It's like, it's just, this is something that I think it's been resonating with me as just something that we consistently need to highlight and spotlight, because I think it is just very much overlooked and unacknowledged, right? And that's why you just see people there. It's very naive. It's something that you don't want to hear. I understand.
Quick, I did want to point out, Dirt McGirt says that supposedly that Lena character is a researcher for the guy representing the victims of the Long Island serial killer, which if that's the case, I'm very interested. I didn't realize that. This person just showed up in my feed, and I was just like interested, and I bookmarked it, and I read in the show, and just so happens to be it. The person only has like 400 followers, but it's only been on Twitter for like, I think, a month or two. So
did you mention it beforehand, or had you looked into the Long Island serial killing?
I mean, I've covered it on the show. I've had Shane Cashman on a couple times. I mean, I've been meaning. You know what? I kind of hope that is cool if that's the case. I invited her on. I haven't heard back from her. I literally just invited her on thinking she was some 400 follower account with interesting content. So like, I didn't realize she actually had more to it than that. So that makes it even better, because I've been wanting to. I don't know if you saw. I believe this actually may have been covered on Ramsey's show, which you're getting ready to go on again here soon.
Hell yeah!
And I believe he covered it recently, where this researcher, I'm assuming probably her, and the lawyer, I forget the guy's name, came out with a bunch of new crazy information about the Huerman guy, the killer, like snuff related stuff, like SRA related stuff. Like this dude was he had like I believe a cousin or uncle or something that was like running an SRA church with like verified
Is
like
the Long Island serial killer.
Yep.
Dude, I've never looked into this, so I'll have to immediately put it on the list.
Yep. So
I gotta get a new note card.
Wild. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to bring it up while we still had it because I was like, oh shit, that's just weird that I just so happened to follow on her content. I was like, oh, that was really interesting, and then like she actually is like doing real shit, so that's cool. Yeah. So Jazz says, check out the movie Under the Silver Lake 2018. Is really interesting style and all about Hollywood underground conspiracies involving music and media.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I will. That's pretty much the only movies I enjoy now, which is terrible. But it's basically like I need to either be entirely distracted, like that's really what it is. I'm completely, sort of like applying myself in every sense of the, psychological aspect of just having to like endure the excruciating details of some of these things, or I'm just attempting to radically, distract myself from the reality that we unfortunately reside in, even though I'm not, again, being negative or trying to offer a black pill. I just swear that I do, for some reason, it either has to be not at all in that vein, and when it comes up throughout whatever we're watching or consuming, I sort of just kind of like take a back seat and like, yeah, I know what that is, and I allow it to happen. I still enjoy myself, and you have to compartmentalize or you'll just lose your mind. But I will say that I almost find more enjoyment when it comes to just trying to interpret, right? Really try and interpret the underlying narrative and the underlying objective that is truly attempting to be achieved through whatever, let's say, Hollywood film or whatever fictional book, or I'm telling you, there are covert influence operations happening. It's full spectrum dominance, right? It's fifth generational warfare. It's something that people can't really comprehend because we're sort of just in the thick of it, right? It's like we're being targeted from all different directions, and we're trying to, at least if you're like a proactive, I guess you're just a critical thinker, and you can kind of like objectively view things for what they are, due to just overexposure, because I tend to think that that's what effectively happens, is that it's due to overexposure and additional narratives that you never would have even conceptualized in the first place, and being exposed to them, right? It removes that veil that we've spoken of often, many times, right? And so, yeah. Anyway, that thread is almost emblematic of this disturbing phenomena that's disrupting all of global society that I focus on a daily basis.
People trying to fuck kids, yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, although actually I don't know if there's a connection here. I don't recall. Maybe it's one of those things that once you start talking about, jog my memory, and I'll be like, oh yeah, I do know about this. You were really wanting to spurg on about the Fort Bragg murders today. So I don't know if you want to like kind of quickly remind us or tell us what this is. I feel like the way you mentioned in passing is like I should know what it is. And the fact there's SRA, like maybe I have, I don't know. Like we were talking before this started, when I was going through this thread, I didn't remember to what extent this is stuff I've already covered before, and I'm just like rediscovering, like, oh my god, because I read, it was a while back, I read Program to Kill, and I've forgotten most of that, especially little details. So it's like I don't remember what I've, and so I don't know. The same thing with the Fort Bragg murders. I don't know if you want to give us a quick, spin up on what that is, and maybe is that something that was covered in like PTK as well or something, or maybe not.
It's No, it really was. The Fort Bragg murders were kind of like this. It was a Ted Gunderson thing. It's what allegedly really set Ted Gunderson down the path of satanic ritual abuse being institutionalized on a military level, meaning like that not only was it being facilitated by, you know, domestic agencies, but also this was some sort of military intelligence operation, right? And that does fit, um, especially when you consider Michael Aquino, right? His ties to military intelligence and psychological operations and the mind war. And then you consider how many other key suspects fall into that category, right? Of military intelligence, background of psychological operations, and they all tend to fall into this child sexual exploitation and the inevitable cover-ups that take place as well. And it's a very disturbing thing to begin to look into. And yes, Fatal Vision was a book as well. And I believe there was something else written called Fatal Justice. Maybe Fatal Justice was the book. I can't recall. But either way, I believe that inevitably he was Dr. Jeffrey McDonald was essentially betrayed because he had kind of at least it's sort of painted that he had good intentions and sort of like, full disclosure, was giving people, information because he viewed them as like credible and reliable to try and help his case and help to objectively make his case. And
real quick, just to back up, so people, I mean, I know we have this up, but not everyone's like looking at this. Essentially, the idea is that he killed his wife. What is said happened is, what he's convicted of is that he killed his wife and 2 daughters. But he claims that it was a few people broke in and essentially murdered his family. Right. So, but yeah, sorry, go on.
No, you're okay. It's honestly, I think that when you get into the reality, Ken Adachi, who he is an author and he wrote a book, and I think that he's the one who wrote Fatal Justice. But maybe I'm wrong. I think that's the name of the book. But either way,
this guy's still in prison too, isn't he?
Yes. Yeah. It's
in 1979, because I didn't see it died on there. So
yeah. And also consider what was occurring at this very particular time, right? Like in history, because this was the height of Iran-Contra and kind of, smuggling weapons and smuggling drugs through, right? So basically, it was leading up to the height of Iran-Contra, and really it was setting the precedent using the Vietnam War and smuggling heroin and all of these different things, which has been proven now that Fort Bragg was, it was legitimately smuggling drugs in a mass, right? Like this was a policy of bringing drugs in domestically and facilitating them throughout the country. And that was inevitably, right, like exposed through all these different scandals that occurred at Fort Bragg. Even if you look into Fort Bragg now at this very moment, I still think this is something that's being conducted at a high level, and it never ceased.
The youngest daughter was stabbed 33 times.
So, dude, okay. So it gets crazy.
Their hearts, man. That shit almost made me cry reading it.
It's very sick. Now, listen to this, all right? Because there's this woman named Helena Stokely. And when you get into the claims of Jeffrey McDonald, and you realize that basically...
By the way, guys, I got a call coming in, so I got to set that up, all right?
I got you. I'll get out of here.
Sounds good.
You guys can keep going.
Sounds good. So Ken Adachi, he's the author and also a brilliant investigator who looked into this Jeffrey McDonald case, and he claims that he first learned of the injustice inflicted upon Jeffrey McDonald in a talk given by Ted Gunderson, right? FBI senior special agent in charge. And Ted Gunderson gave this speech on the night of July 7th in 1999 in Garden Grove, California. And Ken Adachi says he didn't know Ted personally at the time, but did know of his efforts to expose the role of Satanism in the CIA and the abuse of young children who were kidnapped, sexually assaulted, prostituted, sold at auctions, mind-controlled, and sacrificed in satanic rituals. So, the infamous Green Beret murders in the 1970s basically became a mini series on TV. It was really kind of like brought into the cultural zeitgeist at the time. And McDonald had already served 20 years in prison, right? While these TV series were being conducted, yes, basically smearing his character and so anyway, it gets into basically the fact of the matter is Dr. Jeffrey McDonald was wrongly convicted in August of 1979 of the murder of his wife, Colette, and 2 young daughters, 5-year-old Kimberly and 2-year-old Kristen McDonald, in a bloody and grisly satanic-style murder scene that took place in their home in the early morning hours of February 17th.
All right, Austin, real quick. Sorry, I've had him waiting for a while, and I finally got set up. No, you're good. All right, you're on with Jose and Austin on Already Dead. Go ahead and let us know who you are and what you're hollering at us for.
Just call me Bo from Texas.
All right.
Nice.
I just want to say, hey, thanks first off for your show, Better Off Dead, or not Better Off Dead, excuse me, fuck dude. For your show. Also, Tower Gang, you all got me last 2 years of my life. You really helped me just make it through. I know it sounds dumb, but you guys actually kept me going. Also, I just love your work on OKC and everything else. Like, I knew a little bit about this stuff back in the day when I was a kid. Like, I grew up in, like, the Midwest militias, but, like, adjacent to that, like, my dad's like, yeah, those are good people, except for, like, the racist people, if that makes any sense to you. Sorry if I'm talking really fast.
Oh, you're good. You're good,
buddy.
Man, I can't believe I made it on air.
Oh, you're good.
So anyway, but, yeah, like, just re-seeing all that stuff again. Like, I remember as a kid some of the stuff, but just you redoing it all, just all the memories flowing back and just seeing stuff. And then putting little truth bombs out there for people on little stuff the fucked up things that the government's doing. You know what I'm saying?
100%. Yeah. Well, all right. Appreciate. I'm glad you found a value in our content. Highly recommend go checking out Austin's stuff as well if you haven't. But I'm glad you're getting something out of it. I'm glad you're digging the show. You gonna get a question or just a quick shout out? That's it, bud.
That was just a quick shout out. Thank you. I need to go ahead and check out Austin's out. Sorry, I've been listening to you talk about Austin. I just haven't hopped into it yet.
Oh, you're good.
It's dark, brother. I understand.
All right, y'all take care now.
All right, you too. Thanks for calling in, man. You have a good one.
All right.
All right, bye.
That was great.
All right, cool. All right, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. You've been waiting for a while. Go ahead, bud. I don't know where I cut you off. I was completely handling that in the back.
All is well, my friend. I was just basically introducing the wrongful conviction and kind of which occurred in August of 79 for the murder of his wife and 2 children. And really what's very strange about this entire scenario is that you had initially McDonald exonerated on all charges following a long 4-month Article 32 military hearing in the summer of 1970. And the CID was trying to basically hang the murders on McDonald, right? And that really came out in the wash, especially when you get into the different individuals who, because there were more than one person came forward and actually, admitted on the record that they were a part of these murders that took place. And so when you have individuals who are willing to go on the record, as far as Helena Stokely was being one of them, but you also have an individual who I was unaware of this, but apparently the state tends to always basically claim that deathbed confessions are always reliable. And so I found that interesting. It makes sense. I mean, how many people would truly go to the deathbed, holding up some sort of sophisticated con or deception of some kind. But still, I did find that interesting. But you did have one of the individuals, a male, who he basically told more than one person, multiple individuals, that he was also a part of these killings, right? And so once you also put together the witness accounts of everything that took place, it starts to make a lot more sense as far as what actually took place and how they could kind of dismiss all of this as some sort of Manson copycat murder, which is inevitably what it became. And so yeah, the government case is allegedly supported by this hypothetical reconstruction of the crime scene, and it's amazing because they claim that blood spots, fibers from torn garments, and fabric impressions on a sheet disprove the memories of Dr. McDonald when he recounted to investigators what happened in those early morning hours, right? And so, admittedly, the prosecution has never developed any credible motive to account for such brutal murders, and they also admitted to many crime scene errors and losses of evidence, and the defense claims and validates the government's hypothetical crime scene reconstruction. So you have all these different factors that are truly kind of muddying the waters as far as like any sort of justice being pursued of any kind in regard to this case. And so it boils down to the CID and this sort of institutionalized cover up that began to take place. And so, if I guess I should introduce just the basic bottom line of what occurred very briefly, because on February 16th, early morning hours, the 17th, McDonald allegedly, or no, 16th, so it hasn't yet turned to the 17th. He takes his daughters to the this Christmas event, and then they return home at around like 6 p.m. And then McDonald then showered, changed into an old pair of blue pajamas. After the family ate supper, Colette left the household to attend an evening teaching class at Fort Bragg. She was knowingly taking night classes, which this is North Carolina University's night classes, an extension of Fort Bragg. And so, according to McDonald, he then plays games with his daughters, and then he sleeps for about an hour after he puts Kristen to bed at around 7 p.m. And then basically at 3:42 a.m., all right, on February 17th, dispatchers at Fort Bragg, this is when they receive an emergency call from the McDonald household. And he faintly speaks into the receiver, "Help, 544 Castle Drive, stabbing. 544 Castle Drive, stabbing, hurry." And allegedly, you hear somebody in the background yelling, right? And so within 10 minutes, military police respond to the scene. And initially believing they were responding to some sort of domestic disturbance, I guess. And so they find the front door closed, locked, house is dark. No one answered the door. They circled back to the back of the house, where a police sergeant discovered the back screen door closed and unlocked, and the back door wide open. So upon entering, the sergeant walked into the master bedroom before running to the front of the house, shouting, "Tell them to get Womack ASAP." So Colette McDonald, discovered sprawled on the floor of the master bedroom. She lay on her back with one eye open and one breast exposed. She had been repeatedly clubbed about her body, with both her forearms later found to be broken. The pathologist would note these wounds had likely been inflicted as Colette had raised her arms to protect her face. According to Helena Stokely, she's yelling at Jeffrey McDonald, her husband, "Why are you letting them do this to me?" And so we get into that because she allegedly doesn't even exist, right? Although she very much exists, and she was allegedly also a very reliable police informant on many different crimes, not only cases, but she was a key witness, right, in multiple cases prior to this, right, and was allegedly she was passed off from her original handler to her next, basically military police handler, which inevitably helped kind of facilitate her role as a covert informant. And it's very interesting because whenever you realize that this woman attempted to come forward, right, and that her, she basically, the judge deemed, well, first of all, she was threatened by the prosecution. So imagine, right? You're saying this is what actually occurred, and then you're having the authorities tell you that they will essentially pursue, they want to crucify her with the murder charges, is what they're basically essentially threatening her with, right? We will, pursue the highest level, of conviction if you go forward with your actual statement. And it's a fairly tragic story, but she gives a statement to Ted Gunderson and P.E. Beasley after all of this occurs, because they wouldn't listen to her. They threatened her. So they basically said, if you don't keep your mouth shut, we'll convict you on these murder charges and give you, the worst sentence, right? The highest sentence that we could attempt to, implement. And so she then goes to give her statement to Ted Gunderson, who discovers this, and realizes that, clearly Dr. Jeffrey McDonald was actually innocent, within this case, as far as once you get into the bloody details of it all, then you realize that it's basically impossible, especially when she's witnessed by investigators who reported to the scene. Many of these individuals, at least two of them, including Helena Stokely, were described by Dr. Jeffrey McDonald and also witnessed by the first on the scene, right? And so in no way is it kind of casting doubt to that narrative of Jeffrey McDonald's claims of not being, of course, home alone. This officially occurred. He himself had gotten upset that his daughter had wet the bed, so he inevitably went into a rage and then, murdered his entire family with no prior history of abuse. Everyone who knew them. This didn't at all make sense, right? And so she gives this statement, and she says that basically first of all, she just briefly gives like her background, where she's from. And then she immediately jumps into Bruce Fowler. She starts naming individuals: Bruce Fowler, Greg Mitchell, Don Harris, Dwight Smith. And then she says that they're also known as Zigzag and Smitty, Alan P. Mazzaroli, and I, Helena Stokely, were all at the scene of the McDonald murders at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, on February 7th, 1970. And so approximately 2 weeks prior to this, the leaders of our satanic cult met and began discussing the possibility of retaliatory act against Dr. McDonald. Members of the cult were upset with Dr. McDonald because he refused to treat heroin and opium-addicted persons. I have no additional information concerning the motive, says Helena. There were 13 members of this cult, 9 males and 4 females. The membership changed on a continual basis, with different individuals joining and others moving on to become involved in other cults, in addition to the persons identified in the McDonald murders. The following were known to be members, right? Were known by me, Helena, to be members: Sheila, last name unknown; Candy, true name unknown. And then she says, I'm sorry I told you that I would discuss the McDonald murders, but I cannot discuss the members of the cult or the cult's activities. On the 2nd of, on February 16th, 1970, our cult held a final ritual at 1108 Clark Street, Fayetteville, North Carolina. This ritual began at approximately 11:30 p.m. and lasted about 1/2 hour. Mazzaroli, Harris, Mitchell, and Smith did not attend the ritual as they were all out dealing, meaning selling drugs. Now, another thing to consider is the fact that it's knowingly, like it's been entirely exposed now, that Fort Bragg has a history of smuggling drugs internationally from foreign conflicts, right? And that included.
I do want to point out, Justin Valentine said they portrayed Stokely as a drug addict, which he certainly was. Among other things, hurt her credibility, which made me think how you mentioned how they're selling drugs, and that's part of this cult. I find that interesting. I mean, not to say that necessarily is intentional, but that is kind of whether it is or not, it does work out that whenever someone from the group speaks out, likely, let's be real, if you're doing into satanic cults that deal drugs and probably do other really fucked up things, you're probably doing some fucked up shit in your life. Like, if that makes, like, you're probably doing some drugs in some weird spaces in your life. So it makes sense. And on the flip side, the SRA victims are in the same way a lot of times. And like, look at these people, how destroyed they are from the people I just mentioned before. And now they're on drugs or whatever, so they're not credible. So on both sides of the coin here, it is like if someone speaks out, it's like, well, this dude's a drug addict. Look how fucking broken they are mentally. Look how fucked up they are. Blah, 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 blah. Exactly. And it's like, well, I mean, there's might be a little bit more to that than just like, just,
especially
they do drugs.
How do you contend with the fact that she was vouched for by prior handlers as their key informant, which she actually contends with within the statement and names her her handler, and also you have to realize that she went through an independent psychological evaluation as well. Not only was she given a psych eval during the course of this investigation, still she was rendered to, like, inevitably they concluded she was reliable. The court itself, the judge was clearly, in my opinion, someone was sort of controlling effectively controlling the outcome of this case, because he alone was one of the individuals who really perpetuated this narrative of we cannot trust this individual due to drug use, because in reality, she contends with her drug use, and she even makes a sound case as to how she is a reliable witness. And then beyond the fact that, like I mentioned, how can you contend with the fact that she's used as a key reliable witness in all these other prior cases, right? And leading up to this. So all of a sudden, when it's contrary to the official narrative, we must silence her no matter the case. And that's exactly what they did. And the individual himself was named as far as the one who threatened her during the investigation. And he was a part of the prosecution and was, of course, going to attempt to facilitate the cover up. And so, especially when you come to find that they apparently there were sort of like elite individuals with very, powerful influence that were supposedly, according to Helena Stokely, were involved in this cover up. And they had mentioned the fact that we can use the fact that Jeffrey McDonald is a doctor to make the false claim that he would know where to stab himself without fatally injuring himself, right? But in reality, he came so close to his liver, it would have been impossible for anyone on Earth to have been able to kind of measure, right, like the proximity of how that would take place, right?
And how many times did he get stabbed? Did I miss that detail?
It's
the once.
It's crazy. I have to look again at the details of how many times.
I didn't even catch that he had been stabbed, to be honest. I must.
Oh yeah, he had been stabbed by an ice pick and bludgeoned by a baseball bat, and they claimed he did that to himself. Yes.
So stabbed by an ice pick just once. Okay.
No, multiple times. I'm not entirely. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, fuck out of here! Like,
no, he passed out. He passed out.
I thought you're trying to. If the claim is he stabbed himself once and hit himself with a bat another time or something. Still pretty ridiculous, but
he is brutally beaten.
Plausible.
Yeah.
Maybe the idea of someone stabbing themselves is already hard enough just to do in the first place. So it's like,
for real.
I mean, because it's just like a natural, like, stabbing yourself is just, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's ways you can do it probably, but Fuck, doing both and then also doing it multiple times? No fucking way. No way in hell. This is retarded.
Right.
This is ridiculous. All right.
Man.
Insane.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the crime scene itself was never even secured. Upwards of 30 people walked through the house, moving things, contaminating the scene, changing and destroying evidence. Dr. McDonald, he's rushed to the hospital with a collapsed lung and multiple other wounds. His pajama bottoms were negligently discarded, even though they would have been a crucial piece of evidence, of course. And importantly, because the dispatcher automatically figured that there must have been some sort of family dispute, investigators went to the task with a mindset which essentially just taints the entire investigation from the outset, because McDonald becomes the chief suspect right off the bat, which that does happen often. So it makes sense, but it ignores all this evidence to the contrary. And that's the problem, is that it was never even sort of, grappled with the fact that his initial statement was that he had been brutally beaten by at least 3 men and 1 woman, right?
Yeah.
And he gave very specific details in regard to his description of these individuals, including the blonde female with the floppy hat and the go-go boots, and then also this African American individual who had military garb
shit
on.
kicked out by a bitch in go-go boots.
Well, I think she was the only one who didn't participate in the beating, because the other were men. There was like 3 men at least who did the beating.
Did we ever get a reasoning for why? Like, was there
why
something
this occurred? Yeah, it's
did
amazing.
Did you discover something, or?
It's pretty amazing. So
yeah,
basically the initial, allegedly, the claim was because he was hard on drug users as a doctor.
Beat you to it, Ted.
Because he was allegedly hard on drug users as a doctor and refused to treat some of these heroin addicts or whatever the case was, that was allegedly the reason that he was being targeted, right? Was because these were drug users. It was very kind of like a naive.
Wait. The reasoning, was this given by Stokely?
This is the official. This is the official narrative, right? Of why this occurred was just the matter of fact that he was a doctor.
I thought the official narrative was though that he did it to his family. That's the official narrative.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, right. You're right. I'm sorry.
So
what I will say is that kind of the explanation, right, behind why he would have been targeted, the dismissal, the explain away, to kind of basically, kind of, I would say, really kind of just disrupt.
Are you implying this was a defense given? This was a defense. This is an argument given by his defense, and probably either didn't want to sound too kooky, maybe had been talked to someone about, hey, don't give the real reason, or whatever. Okay, but go on. Yeah.
This was what was put forward within the course of the investigation and the trial, is that allegedly the motive behind any individuals attacking McDonald or his family was the fact that he was a doctor who was allegedly, hard on drug users. And at this time that apparently that was some sort of plausible narrative, because in no way does that even make remotely any sense, especially when you kind of realize that this is effectively like a what I would call a fertility death ritual, because it's very much in the same vein of the Sharon Tate murder, right? Mm-hmm. Because Jeffrey McDonald's wife was pregnant when this occurred. And it's a terrifying prospect, but when you get into
Stokely ever give a reasoning? Because she seemed to be okay. There you go. That's what I see. All right.
Yeah.
What was her claimed reason they did it?
So I will skip, because her statement is a little too long for me to really cover, unless so I'll try and let me kind of boil it down, because basically she claims that, no one in the group was wearing gloves. She gives all these excruciating details as to how it happens. And she says, at no time was I near, nor did I see Colette when she was conscious. I did not see either of the children awake or conscious. All of our group, except Bruce Fowler, had regulation GI short haircuts. Yeah, that's another thing. The African-American individual was in military garb, and I believe he even had some specific. I can't remember what his like some sort of representation of what role he played in the military service. I'm not sure as to his position, but I believe it was even mentioned that Jeffrey McDonald himself had said that that this individual was wearing military uniform, but even gave like details as to what type of military uniform. But either way, she says that that basically Bruce Fowler, she gives a description of him, and then she says, to my knowledge, the group did not attempt to enter any other residence in the McDonald neighborhood that night. And then she starts to get into the fact of it was damp that night. And as we returned to Clark Street after the murders, I noticed there was a misty fog. I do not recall the identity of the members of this cult who, hold on, let me find where I freaking was. Let me find it. Sorry, dude. They have this set up so ridiculous, but it honestly, it's so important because there's only 14 slides of her statement, but my God, like when you get into the excruciating details of what actually she claims happened that night, how she actually went to the phone call. Here we go. All right. It was on 11. So it turns out that basically the members of this cult that were living at the Hickory Trailer Park in Fayetteville, North Carolina, some were known to frequent William Saunders' trailer located there at that time. So this individual tends to be kind of, pointed to as directly being affiliated with this cult organization and really providing kind of, a window into which cult organization they're referencing. So William Saunders, it very much seems like this could be the Process Church of the Final Judgment when you get down to the facts. And so she says that she recalled arriving at the house after the murders and that her boots were muddy, her house, right? And the heel was coming off. And she burned her clothes, right, in order to, burn the evidence from the scene. But in approximately 1971, a CID agent who was responsible for the investigation into the McDonald murders gave a polygraph examination concerning the McDonald murders to Helena Stokely. She took it against her will. Prior to taking the examination, she asked for immunity. The operator told her he could make no promises. She was later told by Officer Jim Gaddis of the Nashville Police Department that according to the polygraph, she was in the house the night of the murders, that she did not participate in the killings, but she knew the identity of the persons that did the killings. So this was all actually effectively, right, like concluded within the CID investigation.
I don't know if I missed it, but was there a reasoning for why given there, or did she just not know?
I'm getting into it. She's
okay,
about
go
to
ahead,
say.
go ahead. Yeah.
So subsequent to the McDonald murders, CID interviewed her about this case on 3 separate occasions. They merely asked basic questions, did not furnish any significant information. One of the CID agents who contacted her at Nashville, Tennessee in 1971 was Dick Mahon, but she refused to cooperate with him. She also talked to him in Fort Bragg, North Carolina on one occasion because she had his phone number in Washington, D.C. Now, in 1972, a friend and Helena Stokely contacted this Mahon, Dick Mahon, in D.C., and visited him for about 30 minutes. We did not discuss the McDonald case in depth, but he did say to keep my mouth shut as he was confident that they would find Dr. McDonald guilty. And so she says that he told her I should let sleeping dogs lie. He also told me that the CID had botched up the investigation. Mahon said when the CID arrived at the crime scene, they set up the potted plant, went to the phone, used it covering up any clear prints that might have been there. He also said that they arranged for the hospital to destroy Dr. McDonald's pajama bottoms. He did not say how CID arranged this. Dick Mahon also made the statement that no one but a doctor would know how to stab himself so many times without killing himself. Holy shit.
What an insanely retarded thing to say.
Right?
Yeah, I don't know.
So
I mean, this was the 79, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, were people just that retarded back then? I don't know. I mean, it's hard to believe.
It's
sorry,
amazing.
Yeah,
It's
I guess
okay,
we're still getting to the reasoning, but go on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the composite pictures of the suspects, as furnished by Dr. McDonald to an artist, and Helena Stokely identified them as Alan P. Mazerol, Don Harris, Dwight Smith, and herself. So the drawings were shown to be by Mr. Beasley and Ted Gunderson, allegedly. And so this is the case that launched Ted Gunderson down the path of satanic ritual abuse, as I said. So during the trial of Dr. McDonald in July of 79, she's contacted Judge Franklin Dupree, U.S. District Court, Raleigh, North Carolina, and tells him that she wanted an attorney to represent her. He referred her to Mr. Jerry Leonard in Raleigh. So during the trial, Judge Dupree told the jury to disregard her testimony, and after leaving town, she saw a newspaper article wherein Judge Dupree was quoted as stating that she was one of the most tragic cases he had ever seen in his courtroom because of her drug-related background. So immediately highlighting, right, and putting in the forefront of the public consciousness this narrative of drug-related background, unreliable witness. And so he said the drugs that she had used had her mind so twisted that she did not know where she was the night of the murders, right? And so although she had an $80 habit at the time of the McDonald murders, she claims that she felt very mentally alert and aware of details, as this statement indicates. She was off hard drugs and feels that she was competent and capable of being a reliable witness. And so, in contrast, she testifies before the Disability Board in Greenville, in South Carolina, during April in 1979. And after hearing testimony of a highly qualified psychiatrist, this judge stated that she was one of the most intelligent witnesses he had ever had in his hearing room. So this has already been, right? Like, it's completely just a false narrative in regard to this woman's reliability as a witness. And that was during both courtroom proceedings when she was under oath. And during the McDonald trial, she stayed in North Carolina at a hotel, and apparently early one afternoon after testifying, she ran into one of the individuals who was there at the murder scene in the lobby of the very motel she was staying in. So he told her she better start keeping her mouth shut. This is a member of the cult organization.
All right,
he told,
now we're cooking.
His name was Alan Mazerol. I don't know how to pronounce it. He told me that I had better start keeping my mouth shut. I did not respond. He passed me some Imperin pills. Is that how you pronounce that? I don't even know what Imperin pills are.
I have no idea.
But
yeah.
And she claims that she immediately returned to her room and later flushed the pills down the toilet. So during the trial, Ernie Davis hit her and broke her nose. He was upset because they put her in a hotel room and asked him to leave town because he was harassing her. So she's being beaten during the course of the trial as well after being threatened. And he told her that she should have stood up for him, basically, instead of, essentially hanging him out to dry. And so then she kind of justifies the fact that she had been using narcotics since she was like 15 years old, and that this was in no way any sort of indictment on her credibility. And so basically after that, the end of her statement, she pretty much just says that they pointed to her, ridiculous history of drug use as the reason. But she claims that pretty much regardless, she never sold hard narcotics or prostituted herself. She's not on drugs at this moment, and worked as an informant for Lieutenant Jack Bowlen of the Nashville Metro Police Department in 1971. Has no knowledge of possible infiltration into the cult by CID undercover agents at the time. But it turns out that the cult itself, members were apparently under the impression that they had been infiltrated by undercover CID agents who, directly facilitated this cover up. And so, anyway, pretty much she basically really claims that this was a fertility ritual because she says that it was actually mentioned by leadership within the cult organization. And so she also said that not only was like she basically laid out a hierarchical, standard of what they're looking for within the targets of their ritual. Really, I would say they're sort of, it's really just a fertility blood ritual is what they performed that night, right? Which is it's fascinating. But I should have highlighted where she says that because it's in the middle of her statement and I can't find it right now.
It's all good. We're getting a little long in the tooth here anyways. I do need to get out of here. So I think we've kind of covered most of it, honestly. I don't know. I mean, if there's something else you wanted to hit us with a punch, I think we covered all the main points there. It is a fucking... I didn't know about this story. This is fucking nuts. But otherwise, you want to let people know where they can find you at, and we'll be back here next week. If you guys want a guest to let us know, tell us know who you want us to get on. I heard from Foundering, but he never hit me back up. So he said yeah, but then never. I don't know. I don't know if he lost the DM. I'll have to hit him back up again later. But let them know where they can find you at, unless there's something else you want to hit on real quick before we get out of here.
Yeah, I just want to say that they had, there were candle wax was found at the scene, right? Like they were very clearly performing a ritual, right? Mm-hmm. And it was candle wax from candles that were not found to be owned by the McDonald's. And so it was for sure an outside substance. And also it was sort of kind of put in the context of it was really sort of like this mock Manson replica of the Manson murders, because they were kind of like still very much in the forefront of public consciousness at the time. And there had been like some recent coverage of the Manson murders as well. And so I do find it interesting that basically they attempted to say like acid is groovy and kill all the pigs. And they even like wrote in blood with their fingers, death to all pigs or something of that nature. And
they wrote pig on the 2-year-old daughter's bed in blood.
Yep. Yeah. There it is. Yep. And so it's very much, man, these Fort Bragg murders provide just another window into satanic ritual abuse being conducted not only by individuals within, circles of prominent authority, but also covered up, right, by individuals within the military itself, which once you get down to the facts of this case, you start to kind of come under the impression that basically they covered this up because it would have essentially exposed the broader agenda at play at the time, which was technically, I think they were outsourcing the drug trafficking from the military, Fort Bragg, military base where they were known to have been facilitating drug trafficking at the time. And so it turns out that I think they were essentially using various external organizations, to essentially.
Gladio was in a changing, in flux.
Exactly.
They were in a transition period, changing suppliers from one supplier to another, and there were some hiccups along the way. It's basically, there you go.
Yeah, that's and it very much seems like not only was this a fertility death ritual because Colette was pregnant, like I said, and they specifically only murdered the children as well, right? But it very much seems to have been because within the hierarchical standard of, the most powerful targets of a ritual such as this, pregnant women are seen to be, as far as Helena Stokely is concerned, leadership within this cult organization claimed that, pregnant women were of the most, I would say, the highest value when it came to targeting individuals within the context of these rituals, and then children fell in a close second below the pregnant woman. So it's a very disturbing concept, but I will say that it's something that if individuals believe it, right, and are participating in crimes such as this, and just affiliated with organizations, right, that we can point to that are affiliated with these doctrines and ideological doctrines of right, esoteric and occult influence. I mean, it's important to understand their belief system. I really believe that, because how else can we sort of defend ourselves against it and witness the patterns, recognize those patterns? I mean, it's I think paramount for us to truly, just every chance we get, right, kind of lend credibility where it's deserving when it comes to cases such as this. And so the Fort Bragg murders will be, for sure, in an upcoming solo episode. I will most likely of somehow tie it in with the Hosanna Church scandal, maybe. We'll find out. But I definitely feel as if my upcoming episode will no doubt, it will be the Pilgrim Society, which is largely what I spent the vast majority of my time researching recently. It's kind of hilarious. We didn't even talk about it, but
always next week.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because it is really like, it's one of those things that once it's the reason that I tweeted that earlier about being able to discern between the power broker and the puppet, right? Because just, I mean, unelected oligarchs, right, in a closed private room, just deciding the future of global civilization, and we act as if we have some sort of, part to play in deciding our fate. And I find that to be very naive at this moment. But I hope I'm wrong, honestly. I really do. But either way, yeah, check out the Fort Bragg murders, because it's very clear Dr. Jeffrey McDonald did not murder his entire family. I don't believe that for a second. And the symbolism itself behind the ritual really is almost just kind of, it just almost makes the case for itself, right? It really is convincing. So look into it, no doubt. And look at Helena Stokely's full statement, because as I said, if you read the whole statement, yeah, it's really hard to, it's very difficult, to act as if she's making these details up out of whole cloth. It just absurd to me. I can't imagine that being the reality. But yes, anyway, Pilgrim Society, voting doesn't matter. I'm sorry, guys. I don't mean to say that to you. let me finish. The very last thing I mentioned, the Epstein victim earlier from the Zorro Ranch property. And I had mentioned that she woke up on an operating table, right? And that it was in the middle of the night. And basically, here's something that I found interesting, is that all of the same victims who are basically, offer very similar, statements, they all seem to have this blue butterfly on them, which people have said represents Lilith, right? The first wife of Adam, and essentially they had a policy of harvesting their eggs, and so this woman woke up with the majority of her eggs harvested, and basically a policy of institutionalized eugenics, right? And he was prioritizing harvesting the eggs of these females who would wake up in the middle of the night at the Zorro Ranch facility, and we know that he had a policy of eugenics there. And so anyway, it's just very much interesting that it's not at all far from his property was not far from a military base either. And so again, it just falls within, this pattern. So I'll shut up. Sorry, brother. It's all crazy, man.
All right, you get all your plugs out. All right.
Oh, no, I didn't get my plugs out.
Go ahead.
Sasha told me last week. I'm sorry. My wife told me last week. She's like, "You don't even plug. You just run your mouth." And so, you guys can find me at the Underclass Podcast. Please, if in any way you would like to support me, the best place to do it is at basically at Buzzsprout or Patreon. Either one would really help, and I appreciate you all. And beyond that, keep your eye out for the next upcoming episode on the Pilgrim Society, and I will be on William Ramsey, I believe, on this Friday. So talking about Operation Mockingbird.
Hell yeah, brother. Well, if you guys like what I'm putting out, if you want to support what I'm doing, patreon.com, it's just No Way Jose 2020. The lowest level is $2. You can get the early episodes there. You also can, for these already deads, you can come on as a talking head alongside us. If you want to do that, like I said, patreon.com, just No Way Jose 2020. The highest level, I read them off every episode. Those are the homies, my Patreon sponsors. I have my co-host Toad. You can follow him at Tower Gang Toad. I have at AbrogateDs, at ZOVERACK, at _Infinite Zeal. Jacob Daniel of the Biblical Anarchy Podcast. Follow him at Biblical Anarchy. Then I have Tim Tuttle at Joyline Klebold. Then Will Bell makes a delicious blueberry rabbit eye wine. And then a big fan of the show, at Real Josh Elliott. I appreciate everyone that helps us do what we do. Like, share, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Follow me on Twitter at Tower Gang Jose. And with that, we are out. Follow Grey Pilled. Go check out Grey Pilled. And
later, guys.
Yeah, see you guys. All right, we're out. Bye.